On this edition of the program, the Venezuelan raid, the Iran bombings and future bombings, and Russia. Ryan McBeth joins the show to talk all things military. If you like nitty-gritty military stuff, you're going to love this overview of America's might around the world. And I watched some of the Davos speeches, and I just wanted to give my thoughts on that. Plus, backfighting at the Department of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski versus Tom Homan and the regulars. It's boiling over. It's all coming up.
The following is brought to you by Just Another Pilot.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Politics program for January 23rd, 2026. Your old pal, Justin Robert Young here, joining you in Austin, Texas. I want to get a little pluggy thing out up front. Substack is where I call home when it comes to the paywalled version of this show. And I know many of you who watch us on YouTube or watch us on the Substack player, there is now a new way to do it. It is Substack TV. It's an app that is on all smart televisions. You can go there, you sign up for your Substack account, and you get whoever you subscribe to, up to and including me. Here's what I'm asking. This is a nascent platform, which means if we go all in, then any kind of algorithm that they would have to recommend things, we're going to get to the top of really quick. So get Substack TV, make sure you are playing my videos on it, and send me a picture of it on X, Justin R. Young. Send it on Instagram, send it anywhere. I'm Justin R. Young there too. Send it any way that you can. I want to see what we can do on Substack TV. Okay. Ryan McBeth will be here in a second. Wide-ranging interview about so much, including the raid in Venezuela, whether or not he believes the sonic weapon is real, whether or not we are about to bomb Iran again. A lot to discuss, and we go through all of it. We're also going to get to this story in the Washington Examiner about Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski trying to fire people that might threaten their power. The House actually moving funding bills, which is interesting. And bad news for old Donnie Trump when it comes to the congressional generic ballot. Democrats gaining. But we didn't really have a chance to talk, just because of the schedule of things, to talk about Donald Trump's speech at Davos. And I wanted to do it now because it is separated from what was happening with Greenland earlier in the week. So our last episode on Wednesday for the free feed, we talked to Kirk Beto. That was right after all of the text message stuff was happening. A lot of conversation about whether or not we would militarily go and take Greenland. We now know that all of that is off the table, and the White House is pretty deliberately trying to put everything behind them on Greenland. They say mission accomplished. They made a deal with NATO about sovereignty of the U.S. bases. This sounds like the kind of deal that we had before that we're just calling a new deal. Whatever. They say it's in the past. But the worst case scenario of it also seems to not be happening. So I wanted to go back and watch this speech because it got a lot of conversation. It lasts about an hour or so, and it was heralded by many people, including my co-hosts on the We're Not Wrong podcast, Andrew Heaton and Jen Briney, as cause for the 25th Amendment. That is the removal of a president by his own cabinet because they believe he is mentally unfit or physically unfit for the duty. I mean, that's pretty bad, right? It drew comparisons from some to Joe Biden on the debate stage against Donald Trump, a performance so bad that it ended his political career. So I gotta say, having watched the speech, it befuddled me a little bit that it got the kind of reaction that it got. And I think part of it is if you remove the idea that this is a guy who might send troops into Greenland, which I never really believe, but I could see where people would at least have the possibility of a frame of reference to think that when he's speaking, it loses a little bit of the punch. But I gotta say, it's not like I've watched no World Economic Forum speeches, but I watched a few. I haven't watched all of them. I'm not a World Economic Forum super fan. I'm not a Davos devotee, as it were. But I know that it's odd. It is a departure for a world leader, let alone the president of the United States of America, to get up on stage at Davos and give almost an identical speech to one that he would give in Greensboro, North Carolina at some gigantic outdoor amphitheater. That guy only speaks one way now. There is no formal version of Trump. There is no informal version of Trump. White Castle fries only come in one size. That's it. There is only the way that Donald Trump speaks, which is his rally tone. He likes to tell stories. It's very obvious when he's reading off his teleprompter. It's very obvious when he's meandering. A few things I noticed. Number one, there is a legitimate gap. And anybody who suggests, like the press secretary Caroline Leavitt did, that he did not mix up Greenland and Iceland is lying to you. That man mixed up Greenland and Iceland. I can understand how he did it. He was talking about Greenland, and in his speech, it referred to Greenland as a poorly placed piece of ice. And so around when he said that line, he started referring to it as Iceland. Greenland and Iceland famously kind of interchangeable. One is full of ice, the other's kind of green, and it's not the ones you'd think. But still, if you want to ding Trump for saying, hey, look, Joe Biden's career was in part derailed because he thought that the Mexican or the president of Mexico was El Sisi, who is the president of Egypt, then yeah, you can say, look, the man definitely got that wrong. And again, when you think in the moment that he's saying that he might give a call to Pete Hegseth and say, get the shock troops ready, we are seizing Greenland, then yeah, troubling when he doesn't have the name correctly. But other than that, it's just kind of a rally speech. And maybe, I'm going to catch a lot of crap for this, and I can already read the comments of, you give too much of an excuse to Trump. But maybe my expectations are just on the floor with him. I don't really expect him to say things differently. But it felt like it normally feels. There's a reason why I didn't watch it live. I didn't watch it live because I just seen enough of the guy speak that I get it. If I need to watch it, I'll watch it. And especially if I need to watch it in context, I'll watch it in context. But a few of the other things. Number one, almost all of Donald Trump's stories in this speech specifically, but increasingly just in general, are about him raising tariffs and somebody from Europe calling him and saying, no, no, no. But Trump likes doing accents. The frequent protagonist in this version of the story and has been in other speeches is Emmanuel Macron. Trump will tell the story of like, I get a call and it's Emmanuel Macron. And I like him. He's a nice guy, but he goes, Donald, no, 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 Donald, no, 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 no. And they did the same thing with a Swiss prime minister. No. He loves, I don't know. Apparently that's 90% of his life is just picking up the phone and having somebody in an accent say no to him. He also does like doing accents. He does a Japanese accent that, I mean, look, if this were 2017, that would be an entire news cycle. It's the fact that he did a Japanese accent and said the phrase, "I rich," in reference to a Japanese man, presumably in his second language, telling him that "I rich." But there's that. The other speech that got a lot of conversation in Davos is Mark Carney. Mark Carney is the Prime Minister of Canada. He replaced Justin Trudeau, rescued the Liberal Party there after it seemed fait accompli that the Conservatives would take charge. Of course, this was largely because Donald Trump put tariffs on Canada, and Mark Carney was able to sell the idea that he was a Trump whisperer. He can make deals with the United States of America because as somebody who came from the world of international finance, that's what he does. Okay. The reason why his speech got a lot of praise was because he was speaking about the end of the rules-based order and the role of countries like Canada, middle powers, so he says, and how much they should band together so they can hold better leverage against the hegemons. Presumably, he is referring to the United States and China. This is a shorter speech. I would encourage people to listen to it because it's gotten a lot of praise. And I gotta say, I understand why it has gotten praise from the people it has gotten praise from. Because it is, dare I say, Sorkonian. It is word-selly. It says the things that people would like to hear, specifically people in Davos or that care about the World Economic Forum or find the World Economic Forum a place that is an antidote to the populist rise that is typified by Donald Trump. Mark Carney talks about having a stiff backbone. He talks about sticking up for the middle powers because if you are not at the table, then you are on the menu. And I gotta say, I found it irritating. And when I questioned myself as to why I found it irritating, it was because, like all of the criticisms of the West Wing brain, it was a lot of words that when you scratch the surface don't really have anything underneath it. He talks a lot about boldly claiming that the hegemons will not have their day and we need to say clearly what is happening without naming the United States or China. Wonder why. You're clearly talking about the United States, but you won't name China. And you want to know why you won't name China, despite referring to certain things that China definitely did, like pulling back on supply chains that hurt the people of Canada? Well, probably because you just got back from Beijing announcing a new framework for a free trade deal, one that will pump Canada full of cheap Chinese electric vehicles. So your entire moral high ground is kind of eroded when you poetically dance around the larger point. And then there's this. As he explains that the rules-based order has fallen apart and that these international organizations have not only lost their teeth, but become bloated and corroded, leaving every member within it to be lesser, he essentially is proposing, guess what? Another organization. A gathering of middle powers. So, I don't know. I mean, it's just, it's frustrating if you are somebody that does believe in international organizations and you do believe that there is a pathway forward for it. I know people that are out in Davos and I think that they're good people, but we are in a shifting and evolving age right now politically. And while international stuff is not exactly my strong suit, I would say that we are in a world where either you are going to dance with the United States or you're going to dance with China. It's going to have to kind of be one or the other. And no matter where the United States is, and we're in a particularly pushy phase right now, I think it's a lot better than getting Belt and Roaded, especially when you have a populace that is fond of Canada. And the United States is fond of Canada. I do like Canada. Even if I get a little touchy about the French Canadians sometimes. That's just because I grew up in Florida. That's where they go to vacation. And sometimes they're a little pushy. Anyway. Those are my thoughts. Go watch the Davos speeches or don't. Because guess what? We're probably going to bomb Iran in the next 5 days. And then we're going to be only talking about that. Speaking of that, let's talk to Ryan McBeth. We're overdue for this one because there was too much stuff happening in the world of the military. And I think I lost track of how many times I saw something and I just kind of mentally earmarked it and was like, got to talk to Ryan about that. Got to talk to Ryan about that. Got to talk to Ryan about that. And so we have our friend Ryan McBeth back on the program. How you doing, buddy?
I'm great. Thank you so much for inviting me back on. Thank you so much for helping narrate the audiobook version of Lies to Rule Men.
I'm just saying, I told everybody on the show, I was like, look, you should go get Ryan McBeth's new book, Lies to Rule Men. If you like this show, if you're listening to me and you're buying it in any way on my recommendation, then you're going to really, really like the audiobook. But yeah, secret's out. I am referred to in this fictional version of America that you have created for this series of books. Apparently, I still do a podcast, and it's still called Politics. And I am referenced in the book. I have lines in the book, and in the audiobook, you hear me. I actually read my part in the audiobook. So if you want to get that, it's a very, very fun. It was a fun process to go through, and I'm very excited for all the success that it's had so far.
Well, you're an expert in this world. You're an expert in my fictional world, too.
There we go.
So let's talk about this world.
Oh, my God. As if we needed more excitement to this world, especially in the world of the military. So we've got the now almost forgotten raid to take out Maduro, which to me is the second time that the United States military has looked almost flawlessly competent in a way that I can't really remember the U.S. military looking like before, regardless of what you think about either that or the attack on Iran. The fact that nobody really knew what was happening, I think I charted it out from the beginning of that operation to Maduro being on the boat. It was less time than Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. You could have started that movie, and by the end of it, a world leader was being taken away from their most heavily fortified compound, which is saying something, at least when you're looking at military competence. And then, of course, we have everything that's happening in Iran, and I have some Greenland stuff at the end. But I want to start with Venezuela. Yeah. Still, where I think we're starting to find out exactly how everything went down. There was a viral interview about sonic weapons that were used. From your perspective, what did that operation look like?
Well, it was an operation that was the span of the Dark Knight that took about the length of time it would have taken to make the Dark Knight in order to pull off, or at least the shooting schedule of the Dark Knight. So these guys are practicing for about 4 months. They built a replica of the compound. They deployed cyber weapons that could take out various resources such as lighting. Now that way you wouldn't have to drop a bomb on a power plant. We could take it out via cyber, and then when the attack is all over, they could reboot, and they still have a problem, but at least their infrastructure is intact. Because you want to fight against the government, not the people, right?
Yeah.
we deployed different sensors. And do you remember when President Trump said, like, the CIA is operating inside of Venezuela, and everyone, oh my God, he's so stupid. Why would you say that?
Yeah.
Well, you say that not for the American people, but you say that so the bad guys, so the generals and politicians down in Venezuela know, if somebody knocks on my door and says they're CIA, maybe I should open it, right?
Yeah.
Because you got two choices at that point. You can open the door for America,
Yeah.
or you can be behind it when it gets kicked in.
Yeah.
And one of these outcomes is better than the other.
And especially
And,
that scenario where you have an inflated general population. And I mean that population of generals, not the general population, but the ranks of it had been so spread out, and the kleptocracy is so built into that military that you're going to have willing customers. Like
absolutely.
This isn't locked in true believers.
Yeah. You lick your finger and you see which way the wind is blowing. If it doesn't look like it's blowing from Venezuela anymore, you still have a family to feed. You still have a career that you might want to try to salvage, and you want to be in the right place when that change comes. And what we did there was actually really brilliant, because if Machado walked out of a C-17 flanked by Marines, the Army wouldn't respect her, the country wouldn't respect her. But by keeping someone in the regime in, and who is somewhat of a technocrat, she was responsible for the oil industry, by keeping her in.
She was also technically involved in a lot of torture, which apparently has not endeared her to many people.
I mean, look, did you read America's national security strategy for 2025?
I watched your summary of it, but
you watched my summary on it. All right, smart guy. So, I mean, we're essentially gangsters now, right? We're Tony Soprano.
Yeah.
And you're gonna look. Someone might be a torturer. Okay, give us a cut. You might be torturing people, but you have this resource I need, so I'm going to look past that. And I think if you look at South America in the 1980s, when you had like the Contras, who were just straight up murdering dudes, but they were also anti-communist. So we're going to go with the Contras. We're going to fund the Contras to the point where we sold weapons to Iran.
Yes.
We sold weapons to Iran to get money to fund the Contras, which is, that's how Oliver North was caught, and he wouldn't say anything.
Yeah.
So, I think I said it in that summary that, we've always been the bad guy. We're just the least bad guy,
Yeah.
And there's certainly a lot of people outside of America who hate America, and we go, oh, well, they hate us because we're democratic. Well, they could hate us because sometimes we're bullies. We're just not the kind of bully who's going to come into your country and throw you in jail and torture you. Like if the U.S. invaded Greenland tomorrow, we wouldn't be freaking throwing people into jail and torturing people.
They'd still be playing handball. It's fine.
Yeah. Everything would, it would just be change of government, right? But you can't say the same thing for Russia. But the fact that we would even consider using force in Greenland, which I said wouldn't happen, but the fact that someone would even say that it was an option, that is certainly a new normal.
I want to get to that in a second, because I have a whole Greenland thing. I want to stay on Venezuela for now, and I do want to stay on the leadership change.
Yes.
One of the things that the administration leaked out through any friendly source that they could was that the reason why Machado's not there and Delcy Rodriguez is because of Iraq, and specifically the debathification of Iraq that this Department of War and State Department looks at as a critical mistake that cost maybe billions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of tens of thousands of lives lost, because we said anybody involved in Saddam Hussein's party, right,
Yeah, the
like
Ba'ath
you
Party.
are all gone. Everybody is gone. You are now no longer to be in charge of things. And that created a power vacuum that made more problems than it would have been otherwise if we had just captured Saddam Hussein and then said, okay, who's next up in the Ba'ath Party? You better hold an election, but we're going to let you keep the lights on for right now. Does that make sense to you, or is that spin?
Oh, absolutely. I mentioned that in a video I did, that Paul Bremer had this bright idea of almost like denazification. That you get all the Nazis out of Germany. No Nazis can hold government office, so he decided to do debathification. The difference, though, was that with the Ba'ath Party, a lot of people joined because you needed to be part of the Ba'ath Party if you wanted to hold that supervisor position at the electric company.
Yeah.
You had to be part of the Ba'ath Party. And that's, it wasn't necessarily the case in Nazi Germany. So people were joining the party, not because they believed in it, but because it was just the next thing they needed to do for a promotion.
Yeah.
And if you take a look at Venezuela today, I mean, there are some technocrats, there are some kleptocrats, I guess you could call them, right?
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily know who is who. And right now, I think about 900,000 barrels of oil are being pumped a day, which is about 3 times what it should be. Someone is enabling that. And if we take those people out, then you're going to have a lot harder time pumping oil, and then you're going to see a country collapse. And in a country with the collectivos, which are basically armed motorcycle gangs, eventually that's when you get the army and collectivos and anybody else with guns fighting. And that's usually a recipe for disaster.
What do we know about the cohesiveness of the military, which, by all available reporting that I've been able to see as a civilian who doesn't really understand these structures beyond what I've read in reporting, seemed to be totally stretched out and literally designed so it could not revolt because you had so many generals that would have to get on the same page to take something out, to take Maduro out in a coup. What is the state of that military? Is that something that, you even said it in this interview that, we would need to have somebody that at least has the respect of the military if they're going to be the next leader. What do we know about it?
So I've actually spoken with former Venezuelan officers, and one of their big problems is food. It's actually getting calories to the military. I don't remember about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, there was this rumor that Venezuela was going to invade Guyana. And I remember reading about that, and people said, oh, do a video about it. And I said, I'm not doing a video about this because it's not going to happen. Because there physically aren't enough calories available for the military for them to march through the jungle and invade Guyana. And to perform an expeditionary operation like that, you need food, you need logistics, you need vehicles, you need the gasoline put away in order to, gasoline or diesel in order to operate vehicles. It's just not going to happen. So and also one other issue is that it's so hard to earn money in Venezuela that what some soldiers do is they kick their paycheck up to their boss. So they'll kick a portion of their paycheck up to their commander. Yeah. And then they'll go work a job. So they might be a taxi driver, they might be they might sell fruit on the side of the road. So they're in the army, but then they get a second job where they actually make money. And then they kick their army salary, a portion of that up, and they don't actually show up. They're basically paying to be on the rolls, but not actually present in formation. And that's how Syria's army fell as well. There were the Syrian officers got paid so poorly that regular soldiers would kick their salaries up to the commanders, and then they'd go work a job. And so you might have Assad moving forces around the board, going, "Oh, we'll block the Kurds over here with this, and we'll block these guys over here with that." But they're ghost units. Nobody's actually in them, or the only people who are in them are the ones who are so poor they can't pay they can't pay the bribe.
Or too dumb to get a job. So you're not talking about the best and the brightest here.
Yeah. So in Venezuela, it was kind of that case where The military didn't have food and they didn't have fuel to actually do training. I think one guy said that his military training consisted of 8 rounds of ammunition, his infantry training. So it was firing 8 rounds of ammunition to learn how the weapon cycled and felt. And that was the extent of his infantry rifle training. So there's not a lot. I mean, when you're dealing with something
they
like
are threadbare. That is something where if we are, I mean, obviously our blockade is going to be different now, where it's mostly a in and out stoppage for oil because now we're going to control the flow of it. But if more food is coming in, then that would theoretically, endear the United States to the infantry of the Venezuelan military.
Yeah, I mean, if we can, if Venezuela plays ball, we lift some of the sanctions, food comes in, oil goes out. You have Delcy Rodriguez. She's able to at least pay some of the bribes she needs to pay to her constituents. People are getting food. Then you have that soft landing, right?
Yeah.
And eventually
she gets the penthouse in Qatar. We get a Democratic leader, and everything can work out. Well, fingers crossed.
Doing it slow is kind of the key. I mean, we see this in Syria too, where I think Syria said they weren't going to have elections for about 5 years, and that's actually kind of smart because if they were to do it now, there'd be all these factions and religious parties and just by allowing the country to take a collective breath, and you have, for lack of a better term, a benevolent dictator who will hopefully eventually step down, then you might see fewer religiously based or sectarian factions develop inside of the country. And then you might actually see human rights for women, human rights for religious minorities. My fingers are kind of crossed on that one.
Yeah. One more question about the raid, and then I want to talk kind of meta about Venezuela. The sonic weapons. So this is something that when I'm reading about it starts with the viral interview of the or either Cuban or Venezuelan guard. I don't know who it was that was like, hey, look, the American military came down. Everyone's throwing up. We can't see straight. They're killing 60 men for every, one soldier that they have. They are unstoppable. They ran right through us, blah, blah, blah. My first thought is, I don't think anything that goes that fast happens without people on the inside, opening doors for you. Yeah. And if you're one of the people that open the doors, then the best thing you're going to want to say is, oh my God, they're monsters. Oh, nobody could stop them. They ran right through us. Then you have the CNN article about the sonic weapon being the same thing as the Havana syndrome thing. And then Donald Trump making wink, wink comments about it last night to Katie Pavlich. There's so many red flags from a reporter's point of view of I don't know whether or not we're being worked here. Like what sonic weapon, boiling the water in people's brains. What do you think? So
I've been reluctant to call it a sonic weapon. There is a weapon that uses really sound almost like microwave radiation to boil the water that's very close to your skin. Mm-hmm. And that creates heat. And it's almost like the effect of walking by an oven. And that's designed to disperse crowds. So we do absolutely have a weapon like that because we've tried it. And you can find footage. I don't know if that's actually sonic. That might be a way of calling it a sonic weapon might be a way of kind of obfuscating it so that people don't really know exactly.
But that wouldn't be what this guy in the interview said, where it was like vomiting and this very dramatic science fiction level effect, right?
Even something like that would be like the weapon that we used that protects our embassies in the Balkans. This particular weapon is very large. It fits on a truck. So anything like that, you would have to have in a helicopter. It's not necessarily an area denial weapon. I mean, it is an area denial weapon if it's on the ground. Once you put it inside of the helicopter, then you have to wonder where exactly we're aiming this thing. And then you have to stay in one position, which is bad for a helicopter. So that's a tough one. Unless, and if you're using this weapon, then if it's not a directed weapon, how are American soldiers immune to the effects of it? Right?
Exactly.
So it has to be a directed weapon that's from some sort of aircraft, unless we dropped a vehicle off like a Humvee and we had this weapon on top of it and we were using that to just kind of scan an area and keep people back. And then we do a sling load. We we land a helicopter or something, we bring the vehicle on and away it goes, or we recover it later. That's a tough one because I've never heard of such a weapon. That doesn't mean they don't exist. But when you kind of start peeling back the onion, some of this is probably very big. So if it's very big, where does it go? Well, it goes in a helicopter. Well, if it goes in a helicopter, then this helicopter has to stay in one location, which is bad. Like if you're in a helicopter. So then that kind of leads you down the path of like, I don't know if something like this was actually used. But, you can, look, there were people in Israel, Palestinians, I should say, who would swear up and down white phosphorus was used against us in this situation. And then I look at it and go, oh, those are smoke rounds.
Yeah.
And so you think it's white phosphorus. So you could certainly think, a sonic weapon was used against us, but really American helicopters were loud. Right? And you're scared. And it's a lot easier to say, oh, America was using a sonic weapon than it is to say, you know what? These four-eyed monsters came out of the darkness and they were just schwacking people. So I pretended to be dead. Than it is to say, I was so scared I couldn't fight back.
Yeah. All right. That was my sense. My sense was because also politically, and this has been true of Donald Trump since 2016, one of the things that he's always come back to is that the military saying everything that they were going to do and where they were going to attack and what they were going to do was stupid. What we should have is absolute silence until we do a thing. That has been the case, at least now with the Iran attack and the Venezuela attack. We're being silent now with Iran. I'm just going to put that out there. I don't think that we are done with Iran, but I want to ask you that next. After I get to this, Meta.
Yeah.
China and Venezuela. Yeah. If there's one thing that seems to me clear about what this administration, the steps that this administration has taken from the Panama Canal to Venezuela to Iran to even Greenland, it is consistent with a worldview of either the only way to deter a war with China is to take so many things off the board that it looks like less of a strategic win for them, or we're going to war with China and we need to stop pretending that we're not, and therefore we need to take out their number one oil base in our hemisphere and take this Arctic shipping lane out, and then with Iran, take out their number one supplier of gas, which they are not able to make themselves. What was Maduro's relationship with China, and how important would it be if you were just to look at it from that geopolitical point of view?
So Maduro's relationship with China is fairly friendly, although I believe China stopped lending to Venezuela in 2016 because they were just too much of a financial risk. I guess there is a point where, like,
even China will say no.
Even China will say no because this is just going in your pocket, right? This is just going in your damn pocket. You're not even building the infrastructure with it. At least if they go into like some African country, at least they might get a rail system out of it, right? While the king is getting rich. So the big thing with Venezuela is that it is, I think, 1,600 kilometers from the Panama Canal and about 3,000, a little over 3,000 kilometers from the Gulf Coast. So if you have a Venezuela that's friendly with China, willing to host Chinese ships, China already has container ships, and they've put missiles inside these container ships, intermediate range ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. And so because it's a when the United States and China go to war, which will be in 2027 or 2028, when this happens, China can launch cruise missiles and drones from these barges, from these container ships, at U.S. forces that are transiting the Panama Canal. And they can also launch intermediate range cruise missiles at America's oil production facilities in the Gulf Coast. Now, I don't know whether it's the Gulf of America or the Gulf of Mexico, but the Gulf Coast, the one where Texas and Louisiana,
the Gulf that we all know.
On,
Yeah.
So I've often said that the war in Venezuela is over oil, but not Venezuela's oil. It's over our oil, because about 30% of our oil refinery capacity is in the Gulf Coast.
Yeah.
And Houston is within intermediate ballistic missile range from Venezuela. So by allowing a China-friendly nation to exist in our hemisphere, when this war happens, we are basically putting our rear, technically, at risk. And we couldn't allow that to happen. That is because the war is coming. And if we give China space to launch missiles against us, America will not be untouched. I've said before, the refineries on the Gulf Coast are a prime target. The data center, Walmart's data center in Joplin, Missouri, is a prime target. You take out that data
Why is
center,
that?
now 50% of America can't buy food. 50% of America gets their groceries from Walmart.
Yeah.
So take out the data center, and now the U.S. is worried about, crap, how are we going to logistically feed half America, right? And I know other stores exist, but sometimes Walmart's the only store.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a huge, be a massive headache, and if you're going to war, then that's the kind of stuff that you do.
You can even take out some of the AWS centers, AWS and Azure data centers, and now businesses go down. I mean, you saw what happened just by taking out, Verizon went down for 24 hours, 12 hours. When that happened, I'm looking at my phone like, crap, man, I'm flying. I got a contract in Las Vegas. Yeah. I'm flying, I got to get a new phone until I found out, this is either a cyber attack or the network's down.
Well, yeah, one or the other.
Yeah.
All right. So that's, it is that more than Venezuela's oil production, because that is one natural problem for China, is that they are not oil rich in the way that the United States is oil rich.
No, and so Venezuela provided, I think, 80 to 90% of their oil. 80 to 90% of Venezuela's oil was sent to China, but to China, that's like 4% of their total importing. Now, that's not an insignificant number, but it's still something you're going to have to go find, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have to go find that extra 4% or buy it on the open market. And you're not buying it from Russia because Russia is at capacity. That Russia literally can't pump another drop of freaking oil.
Yeah.
So that makes things a little bit tougher on China, and maybe China's a little more willing to listen when the United States comes and says, hey, give us a trade deal or whatever.
This is your update, brought to you by TakePoliticsSeriously.com. That's where you go. Substack. Remember, download Substack TV. Watch me on Substack TV. I want to hear from the Substack TV video team saying, you want to know who's exploding on Substack TV? Politics, politics, politics. We're plugging it. We're going to make it happen. Let's go ahead and get into some stories we didn't have a chance to cover here. Senior officials in the Trump administration, including Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem and advisor Corey Lewandowski, have reportedly led a push to force CBP Commissioner Rodney Scott out due to disagreements over immigration enforcement strategy and how to meet Trump's deportation goals. Sources described efforts to make Scott's job intolerable so he would resign, even targeting senior staff families, and plan to replace him with loyalists. Scott is a career agent. He challenged Noem and Lewandowski's tactics. The White House and DHS denied internal conflict, calling the team unified in implementing Trump's border agenda. This is my favorite subplot within the Trump administration. The fact that Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski are doing everything that they possibly can to cling to power, while there are career immigration professionals that think that these two are either bullies or clowns or both. I don't know if I have ever in my life read a story that essentially boiled down to Corey Lewandowski showed up and everything got more calm and competent. Every time that you read that Corey Lewandowski is involved in something, it has gotten louder, angrier, and less competent. But it does seem like there are battle lines forming. And here, as best I can tell, are what they are. You have the most influential, one of the most influential voices in the White House, full stop, but somebody that is an advisor to Donald Trump and has immigration on the brain 24/7. That's Stephen Miller. And it is Stephen Miller who is filtering down to Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski. Now, let's also remember that Susie Wiles, who is the most important person, the chief of staff, she hates Corey Lewandowski because Corey Lewandowski tried to get her fired on the campaign. Table that for a second. Meanwhile, within Customs and Border Patrol and ICE, you have Tom Homan, Rodney Scott, and a few other career professionals who are concerned that some of the tactics that are being employed here are eroding public trust and making the job of all these officers harder to do. You've seen Tom Homan out on television a lot more over the past 72 hours. And some of the talking points that he has hit are, we will deport more people than President Obama will. We are not behind on our deportations. We are doing things at an appropriate speed. And really, this is all about blue states not letting us into prisons so we can deport people that they have already arrested for crimes. If you want us to only deport the worst of the worst, the easiest way to do it is for blue state governors to just let us into the prison so we can do it. If we do it like that, we need one agent. We need a lot more agents if we have to go into communities because these people have already been released. That's their position. Kristi Noem and Corey Lewandowski are like, bodies, bodies, bodies. We need bodies out of there. Something to follow. Washington Examiners, who had that story, I would encourage everybody to read it. We'll keep an eye on it. The House narrowly approved funding for the Department of Homeland Security on a 220 to 207 vote, overcoming Democratic opposition tied to President Trump's aggressive immigration enforcement. Only 7 Democrats supported the bill, which funds DHS agencies, including ICE, through September 30th, ahead of a January 30th shutdown deadline. Democrats sought stronger limits on ICE after controversial operations in Minnesota, but the compromise focused on body cameras, training, and oversight rather than major constraints. The House also passed a broader bipartisan spending package for defense and domestic agencies. The measure now heads to the Senate, where Democratic resistance remains likely. But that's interesting. I mean, the House advanced a lot of those bills. There's a lot of stuff getting voted on now, including a controversy about Wesley Hunt, who's running for senator in Texas. He was down here doing campaign stuff. He is literally rushing to D.C. as we speak, being paparazzied on the Dulles People Mover as he tries to get to the Capitol so he can break a deadlocked vote. And finally, Democrats now lead Republicans by 6 points on a generic congressional ballot, according to a new Emerson College poll. The survey shows 48.1% of all likely voters favoring Democratic candidates versus 41.7% for a likely Republican, with 10.2% undecided. The poll comes amid political headwinds for Republicans, including voter concerns over affordability and backlash tied to Donald Trump's foreign policy moves. Democrats also benefited from recent wins in key gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia. Separately, Trump's approval rating now sits underwater at roughly 41% approval and 56% disapproval. The Emerson poll surveyed 1,000 likely voters January 17th through the 19th with a 3-point margin of error. 6 points, good for Dems. You still want it higher. You know, if you're like D plus 3 to 6, close. It's going to be close. 6 and up. Now we're talking. Now that's a party. If you are if you are a Democrat. In fact, it may well be a first of the season. Wave Watch! Oh, the Wave Watch is back. We're going to have to do our own little Wave Watch stinger. It's going to be great. Anyway, that is the update. TakePoliticsSeriously.com, where you need to go if you want to support the show. $12 a month gets you 2 bonus episodes each and every week. Head on over there right now. Let's get back to Ryan. Now, a country that does provide more oil to China is Iran. Yeah. And we have seen a popular revolution in the streets there for the last several weeks. It has gone far beyond the initial bazaars that it started at when their currency collapsed. Their currency has collapsed, I think, almost entire. I think it was worth €0 the last time that I saw. So it seems to, it is worthless as of now. We had a bit of a feint. I had somebody who kind of knows things that tipped me off that there was something in the works, and then Donald Trump apparently calls it off at the 11th hour. It gives me a lot of deja vu to the last time that we attacked Iran, down to the leaked stories saying that Israel and the United States disagree on this, that, and the other. The last time that happened, it was total spin, and they joked about it afterward that they worked all these reporters. It feels like we're going to do something in Iran over the next week, especially if you look at where the boats are coming in. Steve Witkoff is saying this might be settled diplomatically. That was another thing that was happening right before we attacked Iran before. This seems like the exact same playbook. What is your read?
So nothing's going to happen until the Abraham Lincoln gets into the Persian Gulf. And that'll happen in the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group. That's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 days. So I don't entirely know exactly what happened with that. I don't know. I don't know why why this was called off or wasn't called off, or it could just be a case of, look, we can't do search and rescue because Qatar isn't letting us launch out of their base in Doha. Saudi Arabia isn't letting us launch out of their bases. The Iraqis aren't letting us launch out of their bases. So we just don't know. We don't know who can hold aircraft for search and rescue. So that's most likely going to be a carrier, right? Because a carrier is a floating American sovereignty, right, wherever it goes. So it could have just been a thing where it's like, all right, well, we need to wait for an American carrier strike group to actually get to the Persian Gulf in order to launch any kind of attack. And that'll happen within the next 2 or 3 days. And we're recording this on January 24th.
Yes. Yeah, we are. When you say attack, what are we talking about? Because the last time we knew, all right, they have these nuclear facilities. People knew the names beforehand. They were not a secret where they were. The question was whether or not we could take them out. It seems as if we've taken them out. But now, we're not talking about crippling their ability to create a bomb. We are talking about the stability of the Islamic Republic of Iran. That doesn't seem like something that you can just explode. So when we are going to attack, what is it that the United States would attack?
That's an excellent question. Now, there's a couple of things you can do. You can strike IRGC command and control centers, so the Islamic Revolutionary Guard command and control centers, television stations, radio stations, anything that supports the regime. The other thing you can do is you can fly. They're called command solo planes. And these planes will jam television and radio signals and then override it with their own instructions. So something like, hey, people of Iran, you are free, attack the infidels and take over, their bases and such. So It's going to be a lot harder to do if you don't have people on the ground, if you don't have special forces on the ground coordinating things like direct airstrikes. But unfortunately, the people are going to have to take care of any other kind of stuff on the ground. That's a little tough to do when really the only weapons allowed in that country are shotguns and only farmers have them. So it's going to be a lot tougher for the Iranians to do than you might think.
How long, by your estimation, has the government of Israel and Mossad specifically planned for literally whenever this happens? Because I would imagine this has probably been priority, military and intelligence priority number one for that country for certainly my lifetime and probably longer.
Boy, that's a tough one. I don't really know, because I think for the longest time, Iran was viewed as a country that needed to be managed, you know?
Yeah.
And, I'm sure that Israel is kind of looking in the side pocket right now, looking for all of their possible plans that they might be able to execute against the regime, dusting off stuff that is years old, right? So that's actually a very good question. I don't know, but I can tell you this. There are plans or operational plans for just about everything, right? I mean, there is a U.S. plan to invade Canada, although I wouldn't be surprised if that's a little too too on the nose right now, you know.
Well, I'll tell you what, based on their China deal, if they're taking out the Walmart data center, then we might need to go into Toronto.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. But I can tell you that it's most likely that Israel has some dusty plans somewhere to deal with a situation like this, and the thought of the mullahs being this close to being out of power and having one other piece that's against Israel being taken off the board, I'm sure a lot of people are going, wow, that would be fantastic if we could reach that point.
Yeah, I'm very. All of this has been too quiet for me. Like just watching, having been interested in the region. There's commentary in America about like, oh, people aren't talking about Iran anymore. Keep Iran in the news. If this were really dying down, you would have heard from Israel by now. Netanyahu would be on American television screaming and yelling that we needed to get more involved. The fact that Israel is not up in arms and screaming and yelling means something is happening, in my opinion. That is just my gut sense as a viewer of the region. Brian, you there?
I am. I think I have a low battery or something. Yeah, I am trying to get a new battery.
You are back now.
I'm back now.
Okay.
I was having problems earlier. I apologize.
No problem. There we go. Okay, I think we're back.
Yes.
All right. Give me a sense. One last Iran question. In my opinion, if the Islamic regime fell, and God knows, replace it with anything, right? That isn't just what this is. But let's push it, obviously, a little less in terms of the current regime's Israel perspective, and it open to U.S. involvement on some level, right? Which we would imagine a replacement would be more open to U.S. involvement than before. I would view it as probably the biggest geopolitical move that has happened since the fall of the Soviet Union, because I think it affects so many different theaters of oil production, of the Middle East, of its relationship to China. It would affect a lot of, I don't know what it wouldn't touch in terms of it having an effect on something. What is your sense of the regime's importance in that?
Well, the biggest thing it would touch is belligerence. So there was a book I read just a couple of months ago. It was made in the 1980s, but it was basically about all the hijackings that were going on in the 80s.
Yeah.
I think I'm a little bit older than you. I don't know if you remember all the hijackings that happened. There's a guy
that was the only reason why 9/11 happened was because everybody remembered, like, oh no, just whatever. They're going to fly to Cuba.
Yeah. And Iran is literally behind everything. Everything. Like they're the bad guys. Iran, look, and if you look at the Houthis in Yemen, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the Houthis in Yemen, those guys are sitting in a cave chewing on cot. They don't have any missile factories, right?
Yeah.
If you look at the Palestinians in Gaza, right? Where did they get their funding from? Right? It wasn't from selling wheat that they grow in Gaza. If you look at Hezbollah in Lebanon, where did they get their freaking anti-aircraft missiles? Well, they got them from Iran. And actually, for the longest time, Syria, Hezbollah had genuine, honest-to-God operators fighting in Syria. Genuine, honest-to-God special forces dudes. Hezbollah was like the varsity team. So they had these special forces dudes fighting inside of Syria against ISIS and against the Syrian militias that were anti-Assad. So you take all that away because Iran is no longer there. Just the general condition of the world is better because there isn't this money sloshing around to fund these terrorist groups. Now, look, ideology is great, but if you have ideology and no funding, what do you have? You have the Proud Boys.
A church.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Very loud, but ultimately harmless. If you have ideology and funding, you have Hezbollah. Yeah. So Iran, I've often said their main export isn't oil and it's not caviar, it's belligerence. Right? Their main export is funding for these organizations. And if we take Iran out of the equation, we're a lot closer to some sort of peace in the Middle East, peace around the world, even.
I mean, that's right now the mood in the Middle East, at least from my point of view, with obvious notable exceptions, is one that wants to make money and are willing to put off, some fractional ethnic and religious differences to do so. And this is the first time that I can remember that sort of mood in the Middle East in my entire life. That it's never been the case. There's always just been an ongoing war that's been burning since, the beginning of humanity, where people, want to kill their neighbor because of reasons.
Well, if you take a look at a place like Saudi Arabia, I mean, Saudi Arabia, the oil is going to run out one day, right? So they need to become a center of finance or a center of something before the oil runs out. You look at a place like Egypt, what does Egypt export? Cotton? All right.
Yeah.
Maybe some crops. But Egypt, I think, I want to say their population is 130 million. I might be wrong about that. But I think their population is around 130 million. So
that's big. I would have thought it was less.
No, I'm pretty sure it's like this incredible. It's something easy enough to Google. I'm sure people at home are screaming like, "No, you're wrong." But there is I can Google it right now. Population.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
It's an extraordinary number. I want to say it's 130 million, and you have to feed 130 million people. When you wake up in the morning, can you imagine being the prime minister of Egypt? There's a reason why Egypt moved its capital from Cairo to out in the middle of nowhere, where nobody actually lives, right? There's there's too many people that can protest and overthrow your government if you're in the middle of Cairo. So I think that the Arab world kind of knows, like, all right, the oil money is running out. The party is going to be over at some point. And we need to stop this counterproductive BS, even though in a lot of ways, like it made, if you were an Arab leader, it made a lot of sense to blame the Jews for everything, right?
Yes.
Because if you're blaming the Jews for everything, then at least people aren't looking too closely at how you're treating them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at how horrible it is. Look how horrible the Palestinians are being treated by the Jews. And, meanwhile, your police are shaking down people for selling fruit without a permit, right?
Yeah.
Like, so they were always a very good scapegoat. But I kind of think now that that's disappearing when there is so much money to be made by being a stable democracy. Maybe not a democracy, maybe even a stable autocracy.
A business partner. If you can be a respected, if you can receive and pay out POs, you can fit into the world order that has dipped itself into the Middle East. And that's the big question is like, I don't know what's going to happen over the next week and a half. I don't know whether anything's going to happen in the next week and a half, but it's like it could range from a bloody entanglement, boots on the ground, or like at the more optimistic angle, in a year and a half, there's an Abraham Accord signing in Tehran. Like, who knows?
That would be fantastic. Oh God, that would be, there was that old saying, like, it'll be a great day when every child gets the education they need and the Air Force has to have a bake sale to buy a bomber. It'll be a great day when every child gets the education they need and a terrorist has to have a bake sale to buy a bomb, right?
There we go.
Because they can't rely on Iran anymore.
One last thing before I get you out of here. It is the war that will not end. I believe that now Russia's entanglement in Ukraine has outstripped their engagement in World War II. And yet it has far less to show for it. It appears to be a country that increasingly is in a teetering financial position. And according to reports that I've seen, even American intelligence is baffled that Vladimir Putin has not taken the fairly generous terms that Donald Trump gave him at the end of last year to try to end the war. We're now getting days closer. We're in the middle of the hard winter. Eventually that's going to thaw. What is your read on Russia-Ukraine?
I can see them fighting for another 2 years. The fact is that Putin doesn't want peace because he'll be upside down outside of a gas station like Mussolini, or end up with 30 rounds of AK in him like Ceausescu. The most sensible thing,
but doesn't he risk that now? And I hate to interrupt you, but like,
not really.
No?
The issue will happen when Russia gets, if Russia doesn't have a soft economic landing. Let's say like tomorrow they decide to freeze lines in place. All right.
Yeah.
One of the big problems that you're going to see is as Russia starts sending, demobilizing and sending people home, and fewer orders for materiel get canceled, what you see next is people losing their jobs. And then you have discontented people in the street who know how to use a gun. Now, granted, buying a firearm in Russia is a little bit different than buying a firearm in the U.S., but still taking that knowledge with you on how to fight, that's how countries get overthrown, right? So if the line of contact was frozen tomorrow, you'd probably see Putin out on his butt. You'd probably see some sort of oligarchs get together and overthrow this guy. Because the economy, Russia's at like 20% inflation right now, and literally everybody is working, building war supplies, building materiel, building weapons, building drones.
Yeah, I think the thing that I saw, that all banks in Russia can only loan to the government. Like, you can't get, as a private citizen, you can't get a loan right now in Russia because the entire money flow is.
I would believe it.
Yeah, I don't know where I read that. That might be misinformation. There has to be a way of getting private loans, but I could easily see a situation where there could be banks who are afraid that people might not be able to pay this loan back. Yeah.
So we're not going to.
And so they're too high a risk. I mean, that was the only reason why I thought Putin was going to eventually take a deal, is that I don't know anybody else other than Donald Trump that would offer him the off ramp to plug back into the economy. And that to me is the thing that, like, look, it's distasteful to say, and it probably saves Vladimir Putin's life, like you're pointing out. But from what I've seen, it's like, that's the head scratcher, is that people, even in the American intelligence community, are like, well, I don't know what else he would want, like, other than
he wants Ukraine.
Well, sure,
So
he wants Ukraine to be a vassal state.
Was you take out Ukraine, put a friendly government in, and then in a couple of years, once you've destabilized NATO, you take Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia, and then you take Poland.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, what they got into, and now you've taken a 1,600-mile border that's really indefensible because you have essentially nothing between the West and Moscow, and you shrink that down to about 220 miles. So that's the border of Poland with Germany. So that was all ultimately Putin's goal. It was to create this buffer zone of countries before Russia. And he thought he could take Ukraine in 3 days, and then it'd take the Baltics. Poland would have been a little harder, but he thinks he could have done it. So, and those countries have natural terrain features that prevent invasion. So, without actually accomplishing that goal of taking Ukraine in its entirety, he loses, right? He loses because then his objectives aren't met. So in Ukraine's case, I think his idea here is one of us is going to collapse first. Either Ukraine will collapse first or Russia will collapse first. And he's betting that he can collapse NATO and Ukraine first. And that will happen if the United States pulls out of NATO, which I don't really see happening, but there have been some things I did not expect, in the past year. But I believe that Putin thinks if he can destabilize NATO to a certain point, Ukraine will collapse before Russia. If Ukraine can collapse, then he'll be able to take all of Ukraine. And right now, just with along the line of contact, neither side is really gaining any ground. What you have is Vietnam. Every president since LBJ knew we weren't going to win Vietnam, but we kept kicking the can down the road. And I think Putin's idea here is you kick the can down the road until one of you collapses, and his bet is on Ukraine.
And he's willing. I mean, so some of the stuff out of Russia now, I mean, is fairly dire. Like, it's not like Europe ever stopped buying their oil. They just started paying like a tax to fence it through India. I don't know. I guess so. So that is enough. The ideological understanding that, like, he needed to recreate the Russian Federation is enough to just say, screw it. Like, we'll eventually just keep steely-eyed and assume that eventually either Ukraine or NATO collapses, or both.
Yeah, I believe that's the idea. And it gets harder and harder every day because it costs about $45 for Russia to pull 1 barrel of oil out of the ground. Right now, oil's at about $60 a barrel. So every time the price of oil dips a little bit lower, it gets harder and harder for Russia to find the money to supply their forces. Well,
always interesting, always exciting, always illuminating, Mr. Ryan McBeth. Where can people find, if you like this conversation and you like military understanding and also a lot of disinformation stuff, I think we are now in a very, very interesting moment for a lot of that, especially with AI. I am of the belief that, like, what happened in Minneapolis with Renee Good, to me, was a moment where I'm like, video is never going to make anything clearer for us from here on out, because that wasn't even an AI thing. Like, that we weren't even fighting about its, providence. It was like, we're literally looking at the exact same very real video from multiple angles, and we have such divergent things. But you do a lot of stuff on that as well. Where can people find it all?
Well, right now, RyanMcBeth.substack.com is a good place. Pick up Lies to Rule Men, features you in it. Especially the audio.
Get the audio book.
And you can find me on YouTube at Ryan McBeth Programming. Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Always a pleasure, sir. Thank you. And that'll wrap it up for us today. Politics, 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 written and hosted by me, Justin Robert Young, for Dog and Pony Show Audio in Austin, Texas. Our producer is Will Saddleberg. You can send me an email, theyoungamerican@gmail.com. Find, follow, and share video clips of the show. TikTok, Instagram, Twitter is Justin R. Young. On YouTube, it is Politics, Politics, Politics. And if you already subscribe to us on Substack, which you should, either free or paid, you can now get me on your television, Substack TV. We are doing our best to be Substack TV influencers. Take a picture of me on your television with Substack TV at Reply Substack. Come on. Let's get something cooking here. Also on YouTube, our full videos are there as well. Politics, Politics, Politics. You can support us with a one-time donation on PayPal. That is PayJury. PAYJURY. Venmo is Justin-Young-20. Cash App is PX3 Cash. You can send me anything you'd like in the mail. Post Office Box 153184, Austin, Texas 78715. The only way you get our bonus content is takepoliticsseriously.com. $12 a month gets you, sometimes 10 bonus episodes in a month. That's a lot. It's at least 8. Maybe not ever 12. Sometimes it's 10. Math was never my strong suit. But if you want your name read on the show, the only way to do that is the foundational tier, including Sonny Black, L3PO, Peepaw, Scott, Middle-Aged Mike, Tom, Nick, Sarah Jeannie, Jeremy, Pro Idiot, Chiller Tomatoes, Neil, Casey, oh yeah, it's Adam, AB Puppy, Dr. Whiskey, Fat Tony's PJs from New York, Will, The Borge B, Michael, Matt, DP4 Bongo, Andrew, Edwin, Sam, Andrew, Phil, Edison, Paul, Gloria Young, my mom, a dog named Checkers, Jerry, Trucker, John, Berkeley, Steven, and Zombie Doc. If you want your name read on the show, one place to do it. Take politics seriously.com. That's it for the weekend. Stay safe. Big ice storm throughout the American South and Midwest. We'll see how far south it comes to see whether or not it affects us here in Central Texas. But hope everybody's good. Don't drive if you don't have to. Great time to binge something. Watch some Oscar movies. Sinners, 16 nominations. Look, I'm not saying that Sinners wasn't a good movie. I really, really, really liked it. And it's going to get a lot of crap for having it a genre horror movie, especially with racial themes. That's what Ryan Coogler does. If you don't like, that'd be like yelling at Spike Lee because he had a movie with, racial themes. Come on. That's what he does. Anyway, it's going to get a lot of crap. It's not the movie's fault. The movie's good. The movie has great horror stuff. It has really interesting takes on the vampire mythology. I love Dusk Till Dawn. I love Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? It's kind of a combination of the two of them. It is a very Tarantino-y kind of script as well. Anyway, look, it's fine. I still haven't seen one battle after another. I wanted Eddington to get a nomination. It didn't. Okay. That's it. Till next time. This is your old pal, Justin Robert Young, saying some shows talk about politics, others talk about politics, and still more discuss politics, but this is the only show that dares discuss. Oh! 3.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Dog and Pony Show Audio.